Hi, everybody. It's Alex Jarett with Technology Executives Club, and I'm here for another Spotlight interview, this time with my good friend Prabir Chatterjee with SPAATECH. You're actually the CTO of SPAATECH. Hi, Prabir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Alex?
It's great to see you. And God, Prabir, you and I have known each other for so long. You used to come to many of my conferences, and I know just knowing your history, you've been head of data, CIO, CTO, number of companies. I think previous to this, you were in charge of all the data for Spencer Gifts. Prior to that, you did SIRVA. And I know you've worked with all kinds of industries. So tell us what you're doing now. Tell us a little about SPAATECH and what your role is and what you're up to there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex, for bringing me here. What I do is I work with the different industry leaders, which can be any industry. So starting with retailer and the banks and any other organizations you can talk about. I use mainly the data and AI to make sure that they can drive their better decisions and better customer experiences. What does it mean for me is sometimes that people lose focus on their data, but they pay focus on the technology. So I remind the teams, remind the industry leaders that they have to focus on the data to make sure they can get the most value of their investment doing in technology front or the data
Yeah.
front to create the business value. So that's my focus, and that's what I'm working on it. And I'm working with all the technology leaders relentlessly with my experience on the decades on that topic.
Wow. It's interesting because data has come into favor, now it's back. But you have been consistently, it's back really because everybody's talking about AI. You've been consistent on this theme of data-driven businesses for a long time. When you say that, what does it really mean to you? Because I've talked in other interviews with you where you really go in depth to make sure that the data is not only coming to the executives, but the data they're creating is helping the rest of the company too. So what do you mean when you say data-driven organization?
So what does mean for is not living with intuition, not living with estimations, but go with facts.
Uh-huh.
What informations you have, and that information is living in the data of what you have in your organizations to make your decision a better way. Embed your intelligence through the data so that making sure that you get the proper decisions at every level of the organizations. That's what I mean for data-driven organizations, means that every business functions, when they make a decisions, that decision has to be a comprehensive collective decision-making process through their data across the organization.
You said that really well. So at every decision point where somebody's making an important decision, you want them to have the right data so they actually know what decision they're making. That's what you're saying,
Yeah,
right?
for example, like in Spencer Gifts, I can give
Yeah.
the current example there. So if the Spencer Gifts, they do not really look at the data points of different peoples, how they are buying, how they are behaving
Uh-huh.
when they are looking at the data, they would not be able to do right personalized promotions for
Oh, that
them,
makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
And then also if they really don't look at the facts through the data of how they are doing the forecasting, how their selling is happened, how the stores is sending back information, have the feedback of
Uh-huh.
their sale, then they will not be able to do the right inventory planning, and they will be losing a lot of monies, and then supply chain will not be more effective. So all steps of the way, starting from the ordering to the manufacturer to all the way to selling to the customers, is every step of the way. If they continuously use the data, then they will be doing the best value to the customer and also best value to their shareholder and their stakeholder.
That's great. And you've been on this journey for a long time. And I know you've worked with machine learning and other early stages of AI. And now everybody's all excited about AI and they talk about, we got to do this with AI. But I know from talking to a lot of CIOs, they're a little apprehensive about it because there's of the risk involved. So you talk about AI readiness. Now, what does that mean when you talk about AI readiness?
Yeah, I think one of the key words which you missed there, enterprise AI readiness, not the AI readiness, right? So what does it mean for it? If you look at the statistically, there is a uh, 80% of it, more than 80%, I think about 90% of the AI project, it does not go to production. It stays into the prototype stage. Why? Because those prototypes never generated the business value from there. The reason why, because that business value is not just limited to a chat bot or a virtual help desk, right? It requires that whatever information they have in their organizations, that's basic. The information is for that enterprise only. It's not the other enterprise. That information, if they really align, there are three things which used to be called people, process, and technology.
Yeah.
Right. Now it is called people, technology, and data. Right. Process is coming along with the AI thing. So that data, tech, and people talent, they align together then and create a high impact use case that will bring them the value to the enterprise. And that's what the enterprise readiness I meant for it. Using the data effectively through their proper tech and talent and make that one as a advantage of their business.
That's really interesting. You're saying that the combination, if I'm hearing this right, the combination of the talent and the technology together has this amplifying effect, which you think one of the real powers of AI. Is that right?
Yeah. Combination of talent, tech, and the data.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that before. Of course, you're much more involved in this than I am. So if a CIO or senior executive is watching this, what advice do you give them and how would you go about helping them if they were going to reach out to you?
Yeah, so the way I do the help the different client and businesses in these organizations is I try to use our standard principle of the framework, which is very common framework called the D4 framework. You know what does that mean? The D4 is basically saying the discover, design, develop, and drive. So that's a standard D4 framework where we look at, discover that what is the best use case for the organizations to apply the data to take advantage of the modern AI technology. So that's the discover process we do. And then after that, we create the proper infrastructure, proper design of the data architectures and data models and data governance and all those things in place so that we can properly design your data ecosystems to make sure that you would be ready to the AI utilizations. And then after that, we go to develop these things. Means we create all systems, making sure they are integrated, they're talking each other, and they have a proper security involved, all those things there. So that's called development phase. And then once that is all done, then last phase, which is the hardest phase, is to bring the culture inside the organizations to drive, to utilize those things which is developed. So it's basically I would say democratization of the things which you developed and so that you can start seeing the value from each level of the organizations. And that's what we do.
You've really got a great vision, Prabir. And everybody, I've been hearing you talk about data-driven organizations for a while. And now with the advent of AI for the enterprise, I hear what you're saying. It's not just general AI that's coming in. It's their AI, it's their data for their business. That's what you're saying. And so the key to all this is having the data ready.
Yes, that actually I'm saying it here. I'm giving the open team and saying that it doesn't have to be you work with SPAATECH for doing that. You can work with me as I can make sure that this particular framework is used in your advantage and making sure that you really see the value of your data. And as you know, that data is king at this point. You basically sitting on the data and not realizing it, how much you can take advantage of it.
I think for an executive to hear this, it takes vision. You're giving them a new vision, which is, look, I think we can all sort of assume that there's this great advantage to AI, right? The key is the data. And here's the steps that you do to get that AI working for your specific business objectives and your specific enterprise. Is that right? I'm hearing you right?
That's right. And that's we call as a return on data.
That's great. One thing I want to do is I want to thank you for this, but also thank you for being on our board of advisors. Everybody you'll see on Prabir's page on our site, he's always sharing information. I know you're always going around the regional community and sharing. You're always helpful to everybody you've ever met. I've seen that. So thank you, Prabir. Really appreciate you and appreciate you being on our Spotlight interview today.
Thank you, Alex, for having me here and nice talking to you.